Welcome back to episode 2 of Commander Lab. I am your host, Ken.
And I'm PJ.
And today we're going to take a look at what was said in the live stream of Wizards of the Coast after they have taken control of the RC or the Rules Committee when it comes to the Commander format. A lot was said. We have broken it up into like 3 or 4 parts that we thought were the most important. We're going to go over them now, and what we're going to do is going to play you a clip of what they said in the live stream, and we'll discuss soon after. So let's start with what they said when it comes to the format and what to expect.
So keeping everyone happy, making the game as fun as possible for as many people as possible is the way we're going to make our money.
Yeah.
And so I think, once you accept that, like, our motives should align with how most people enjoy the game, if it's going to work properly, and it has, for over 30 years now. That's going to be why we make decisions. We want people to keep playing. We want people to enjoy the game, and if there are things that we have done that make it less enjoyable, we will address them.
Yeah. All right. So right off the bat, PJ, what do you think?
So my original thoughts on this entire presentation or this entire conversation that they had, I feel like this is the initial conversation that should have been had well before that blog post was even created yesterday. I think the blog post raised a lot of questions. I think this helped clear up a lot of that, and I know that a lot of my questions that I had going into it were answered.
So some of the things that he said just now, if you had told me that yesterday or when we did the first video, I wouldn't probably have said what I said. Notice how he said that this is how we make our money. He's absolutely right, because Wizards of the Coast is a business, but if no one's playing the game, then you have no business. So obviously making sure that people are still having fun, that people are still engaged, and that people that still want to buy the product is obviously a good business plan. I also like the fact that he kind of went back on his history and said, we've been doing this for 30 years or so. So we understand how important it is to keep the community happy, because that's, whether it's linear or non-linear, that's the objective. If you have happy customers, you have returning customers.
Yes, I agree. I think this is the reassurance that we needed after the immediate backlash from last week and then the blog post from yesterday. I think this is really the right direction that Wizards is taking this.
All right, so let's go to the second part, or the second soundbite that we have queued up. Hold on just a second.
Absolutely. So as one of the things we're doing with management of the format is we're going to reevaluate the ban list, look over that and see if there are any changes we want to make. We're not going to be banning any cards as a part of that. Whether or not cards will be getting unbanned is unclear, right? We're still having those discussions. It is all very fresh. But one of the things that is important to me is that the community is a part of that.
So, what do we feel about that statement?
So I think Gavin help clear this up again, just continuing the original conversation. I think much needed and super important, talking about the future and what to expect from where this goes for Commander and Magic in general.
So you are in the boat, which you said last time we spoke, that you believe there should be no bans, that there's interaction and stuff for everything. What he said is that we're not looking to ban anything, and we're looking at the ban list. I am of the team of perhaps banning some cards or just making them difficult to purchase, like we saw with Dockside. That's why I feel, even though there's nothing to point to, they didn't print so many of them because they didn't really like what it did to the format. But I think that them looking at the ban list and looking at where Magic is now from where it was when the card was banned could be a good thing. I personally believe like Jeweled Lotus could make a comeback. It might be in a different bracket, which we'll get to, but I believe that that card was something that was a good idea. Where on comes to Dockside, perhaps it was a, oops, we shouldn't have done this, but we did. But we shouldn't do this again, and you might hear from that a little later. So let's go on to the next soundbite when it comes to this live stream.
But we're not looking at doing tons and tons and tons of check-ins and changes to what's happening with the ban list, because stability is a key part of what makes Commander Commander.
So that right there, stability is a key part of what makes Commander Commander. I totally agree. I think that a lot of people were angry at the RC or didn't take the RC seriously because they didn't make changes, I guess, as frequently as they would have liked. But at the same time, then you're just chasing changes. You just want to enjoy the game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think go back to an earlier point you made. I think making cards limited or in a certain way less accessible is a form of gatekeeping, which I don't feel is right in the format that we play, which is EDH or Commander. I think being inclusive to everybody, allowing as many people into the format, because it is a casual format, you should invite as many people as you can. And we don't want to gatekeep people by limiting cards where it then increase the cost of the cards so more people can't get the cards. I think that's why you even see these days more and more proxies coming around. I think being able to include as many people as possible to the casual format is a good thing, and I think it can only get better with Wizards having their hands in it and addressing and readjusting more frequently.
I think that's a good point. All right, so let's go to soundbite number, I believe, 4.
System. So the idea...
Okay, so this is the Commander Power Bracket. It's a bit of a longer soundbite, so we're just going to let this play so everyone can wrap their head around it.
System. So the idea of the Commander Power Bracket system is as follows. We would take a lot of staples for Commander and divvy them up into buckets, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These don't have names right now. This is all very, very fresh and new. If you have great name suggestions, we are happy to hear them. Maybe numbers is the best. Unclear. But one Power Bracket 1 level cards are cards that any deck could very conceivably play and are kind of often staple-y cards at, we put them in precons all the time. Things like Swords of Plowshares, Grave Titan, and what have you. It's sort of like precon power level roughly or below from there. All the way up to bracket number 4, which are some of the strongest cards you can play in Commander, and mini cards players don't want in their games, right? Like Armageddon is on here as an example. That is a card that is generally not super fun for a lot of people if it shows up in the game.
No, it's not.
But some people and some tables do enjoy playing. Your deck is then defined by the highest power bracket card that is in that deck. So for example, on this list right here, if my deck contains Adraneth Magistrate, then it is a power bracket 3 card, unless it also contains a power bracket 4 card in there. Now, the system is not perfect. Nothing is ever going to be better than sitting down with your table and having a conversation.
So,
yeah.
All right, so that's a big one. What are your takeaways?
So this 60-second excerpt, I think, is exactly what should have been the beginning statement from them when they talked about the power bracket. I think introducing the power bracket in the blog format that they did yesterday left me, especially I know a bunch of others, with so many questions of how does it work? What does it mean? So clearing this up, I think, I heard around the other parts of the community, I think there's no objectiveness to what a deck's power level can be with this format. I think if you put cards in your deck and they have a certain numerical value, your deck that equals 300 is your total power, puts you at like a level 4, of course, or whatever it is based on the cards that are in there. Then you could compare that to somebody who has a deck and maybe they're at like 100, for example, and it's like, oh, I'm much more power level than you are. I think it's a much higher power level than you're playing. I don't think these decks compare. We should probably either switch this up or have some kind of conversation to get more of a level playing field.
So when I first heard about the power bracket, I was confused like most people, but I think he did a way better job at explaining it now than in that post, again, because you really can't elaborate when it comes to a blog post. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 makes sense. If he had been Pyrrhic Tutor, he had let me just go back so I can see this for myself. He had been Pyrrhic Tutor, and he had Armageddon, and he had a question mark. All right, so by them creating this bracket, one, I like the fact that it's 4, because Gavin had mentioned in that live stream he didn't want it to do 5 because he didn't want people laying in the middle. And that's where you get that meme that, oh, my deck's a 7. We hear that all the time, or they meme it all the time. It's either 3 or 4, or it's 2 or 1. I doubt most pre-cons will even fall in the 1 category. They may be 2s, but here we are. I believe that there is cards, like just when we sit down at the table and I say, oh, I have a Mana Crypt, I have a Dockside, I have a Jeweled Lotus, I have some Tutors, I have a Psych Rift, and I have, like, let's say it's a Furious Protection or something like that. People know, okay, he's playing with some heat. That's probably an 8 or an 8.5. There's no infinites, so there's no combos, da-da-da. He mentioned combos. He said combos would likely fall in a 4, which I guess that's fine. But I feel if I were to run those cards that I just mentioned, I really wouldn't be in a 3. I'll be in a 4 with no infinites. Like, I feel like that's what we would be at. I think the power bracket, where it is now, and he says it's new, isn't the most, I guess, polished and impressive thing. But I think that going forward, if 6 months from now, it's going to be a lot easier to identify what your deck is and where it falls on this bracket, and you'll be able to sit down and everyone agrees, yeah, this is a 3.5, yeah, this is a low 4. A high 4 would be more like CDH, CDH. Low 4 is like you don't have infinites. 4.5, maybe you have some infinites, 2 cards, 3 cards, that kind of thing.
Yep, totally agree. I think this clears up a lot of the questions about the power bracket, and I think this gives them the opportunity to build a base for powering decks, and they can work on this. I think, like I said, you reevaluate what cards are based on new cards coming out. You know, some cards, just because they work with something, they don't work with others. But I think if you introduce new cards, which they are currently doing every 6 to 8 weeks, whatever new sets come out, that kind of can change the value of a certain card because it fits so much better with new things that are coming out. So it could make a card stronger than it currently is, or it could make a card a little bit worse based on some things that can counter it or interact with it a little bit better.
I also like that we're not going on a 1 to 10 scale anymore, because 1 to 10, have you ever faced a 1 deck?
It's
2
very
deck?
vague.
It's so vague. It starts at like 6 and above, and then people like to hide in the 7s when they know they're 8s. To make this a lot easier, just be honest with your power level. That's all you have to do when you sit down for a game of Commander. Be honest. Pub stomping, I understand there's a group of people out there who enjoy it, but it ruins the experience for other people, which you don't want to do. You want to play with people. If not, don't. So make the experience as great and as joyful as it can be. All right, so let's go to the next soundbite, which I believe might be our last. Hold on just a second.
And having a conversation. Yeah, when it comes to a card, the cards that were banned on Monday, for example, those are cards that we are trying not to make, like Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus. Those are cards that we would not want to make today by today's standards. They kind of break some of our cardinal current Commander design rules on the team.
So, cardinal design rules on the team when it comes to Dockside and Jeweled Lotus. I'm gonna ask you, PJ, if those break the cardinal design for the design team, what do the cardinal rules look like?
It's tough. I think it's an objective question. That's a little bit of a murky spot for me. I think cards are created and printed to fit the format or the time that they're released. I don't know how far out that they're projecting things to look. So, sets there, I know they've already released names and set dates for next year for 2025, but do they already have card designs for those sets? How do they interact? How do they work with our current sets that are out now and accessible now?
Yeah, it's tough to gauge, like when he talks about Dockside, at least Jeweled Lotus. Jeweled Lotus to me is mana speed. Dockside is a card that is just so easily manipulated. So it's tough for me also to gauge what the cardinal rules look like when you're comparing 2 different animals like fast mana and easy manipulation. But it seems like the introduction, for example, for this triggers once per turn is them putting the brakes or a cap on what could be a very powerful manipulated card, but it's not because it triggers once per turn. So perhaps we might see a Dockside that has a trigger like rounded down, or for 2 opponents or for 1 opponent. You know what I mean? Like we might see a Dockside equivalent, but with that break of once per turn or some other kind of language, so it doesn't just run off like it has.
Yep, and this allows them to continuously, which I feel like they've been doing now, is power creep, but put restrictions on that power.
Guardrails, yeah.
Yes, I think you could continuously say, hey, listen, this now will do this, but you only get one chance to do it.
Yeah. You can't just keep doing it unless you find a way to break it, in which case then that's
Again, future
that's
card
us.
designs might allow
It might-
something that is out now to be broken that isn't a way to be broken right now, but it doesn't mean it won't ever be.
Okay. I totally, because if there's cards that can be broken in Magic players will find it. This is the last
goal
one.
I would like to shoot for.
So he's talking about the timeline. When will we see a polished power bracket?
Is having something with the power brackets ready to go by MagicCon Las Vegas. So we can have an article up, something up the point in that direction, and we can kind of try it out there. Maybe we can get some fun little things made for the tables so you can indicate what power bracket you're in. But I don't want to promise anything, right? The important thing to me is we take the time to do this right. Commander is an important format to a lot of people, myself included, and I would rather take the time to do something correct than rush it out before it's ready.
I mean, you can't argue with them saying they want to take their time out. MagicCon Las Vegas is when? I had to look that up. I have to look it up right now, actually.
While you're doing that, I'll feel. I think this gives the sense of hope for me, at least. I think letting us know their goals and their aspirations, and knowing that they're not rushing this to just make the immediate correction to hopefully rehash some of the backlash that they did receive. Do it right the first time, which is always the way things should go. I think if you're going to do it right. Make sure you have the right people that are so involved and invested in this that can give you this input and this insight to do it the correct way.
I think so too. So if you were to ballpark, just to guess a date, when do you think, because I have it up now, when do you think MagicCon Las Vegas is?
I'm going to guess April 2025.
October 26th. It's this month, October 25th through the 27th.
3 weeks away.
We're 3 weeks away. So that's pretty soon. Gavin also mentioned in this piece that when they met with the rules committee, Wizards of the Coast did not ask for this kind of like transfer of power. They weren't going into this meeting expecting it. So when he says this is all new to us, I think he's authentic in saying that. I think they really just were given this huge responsibility. And they're like, okay, it's yours now. What do you do with it? And this bracket thing, or perhaps something they were trying to do in the back burner, they're like, we have to put that in the forefront now. That kind of thing they're stuck with. But October 25th is not a long time away. And the one thing that he said there is perhaps we'll have some signs on the tables. How much easier would life be if there were signs on the tables that say power level 4, power level 3? You wouldn't. You still have the rule 0, which you sit down and you talk and you converse and see what everyone's playing. But at least you're going in the right direction. You're not going to sit with a bunch of pre-con folks and be like, yeah, I'm power level 4. And they're like, dude, what are you doing with us? Like, we're playing pre-cons. I think that vision and that imagery is very, very exciting, and it's very, very efficient to me.
Yep, and I think this allows for more creative deck building for us as the players. I think hey, I want to be in this power level. What cards can I not put in here that's going to put it over? Just like we use our Mox Fields and our deck building websites. If those, hopefully they can add a section to it where it says, hey, you entered these 100 cards. Your deck is now at a 500 total value of whatever they deem the cards to be worth. And it's like, hey, this is a quick reference. You say, hey, look, you can't get around that. You have your deck. It has a set number of cards that are in it that gives it a certain number, a level. There's no skirting around that. It's black and white. It's public knowledge. Then you can then sit down at the right pod and play with the right people.
I think excitement is the word. Can I use that word to describe how we're feeling after this live stream? What would you say?
Yeah, I think this is almost a complete 180.
Oh my God.
Yesterday's conversation.
Oh my gosh.
We had. I think we are in a much better zone from where we were yesterday, and I will say I'm definitely excited.
I am excited too, especially like to sit down and see just like table 3s and table 4s, and if EDH Rec or Architect type can somehow print out like power level based on your deck list, that would make life so much easier. If there's any developers listening, please just start working on that when you can, because that would make it so much easier. Then you could even categorize your collection, like what cards would be like. This is a very exciting. I would say exciting, and I'm actually very happy that these folks took the time to clear things up, and I think did the right thing. Is there any closing thoughts?
Besides actually being excited, I think that we're ready to move forward from the bans.
Mm-hmm.
We're past that. We're ready to move forward from the blog post. I think Magic, our game, EDH Commander, is ready to be a better game. I think it's always going to be inclusive. It's always going to have that casual side, and I think, which is what we play. We typically play casual EDH. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm ready for the future of it.
My last thoughts is for CEDH players, if you're watching this, Gavin did mention that in his community building and his community discussions, he will have almost like a panel, and on that panel there'll be one CEDH player on it, because your point of view is important. But just to piggyback off of what PJ said, I'm very excited. I'm very excited what Commander will look like in 6 months from now. I can't wait to build some 3s that slap like 4s. Like, that's going to be kind of the aim that I'm going for. That's what I'm excited about. All right, so
the piloting's going to matter. It's going to matter.
Piloting is going to matter so much.
You're going to have
exactly.
To play. Yep.
All right, so this was episode 2 of the Commander Lad. Let me know what you think about this new information, about this live stream, about the power bracket that has been introduced. Make sure you comment down below. I am Ken.
I am PJ.
Happy playing.
We're tapping out.